Welcome to the next video. In this video we want to create a new page about the meeting itself. Once we click on it, then the page should appear and give us some information on how the rating is. Yeah, let's start with it. You should also be able to give feedback. Okay, to do that we go on new page. Let's just call it meeting page. There we are. Okay. So once we are entering this page, we need a page data. And we can do that by just fetching it from our REST API by going to variables, data variables, add data variable, meeting, single data record, and now we need an ID. Okay, where do we get this ID from? Well, we get this ID from the moment we click on it on our landing page. So to make it possible to transfer data between pages, we need something called page parameter here. So we're going to say this should be a parameter name. Let's give it a name, something like meeting ID. All right. And now we can go back to our data variable and say we're going to fetch a single record, and the ID is the same one which was being passed by and saved in the page parameter. Okay. Now we need to... Okay, let's just display first some data. We have our title, and our title should actually display from the data variable what we have defined, should be the name. And the content should be the description. There we are. Let's save it. Okay. Now if we try it out here, we don't have any component temp event attached to it. So we have to move back to our landing page, click on it, on this component, the card 1. It has a component tab event. It's not been connected to any other node. Let's pull a new node, open page, connect us to now the page we want to redirect is the meeting page. Yeah, like that. And here we can also specify the parameter, the meeting ID. And the meeting ID should match from the currently repeated item, the ID. That's it. So let's try it out. We have 2 items. Click on the first one, second item, no description. Let's go back, second item, click, and the description appears here as well. Okay, that's great. So what do we need now? Maybe some kind of feedback. We want to rate this meeting. Okay, let's go to the row. Let's give it to 3 items, and in each of those items let's put a little button. Okay, also give it a title. We should call it something like rating. Maybe a bit more descriptive. Let's change it to a paragraph. How effective was this meeting? Not effective. -1, 0, +1. Okay, let's put some margin. Let's put a margin in this middle box. Margin 5, 05, 05, yeah, and 5 on the right side. There we are. So let's put some kind of border around this container. Let's give it a name. Let's call it feedback box. Okay. Click on feedback box, then on style, on border. Yeah, let's go with something like that. Looks like the border is not showing up. There. Let's give it a little padding. And we can also round the border a bit. Okay, nice. Well, these buttons, they look like a bit too big, but it's okay. Okay, we can give it a rating, and then we should also give it some kind of like a feedback. What's good, what's bad. Okay, this should go. Right there. Okay, let's call it feedback optional. Okay, we can also give it some different colors. So let's click on a button, style, background, and let's look for something red. Red here, gray here, and green. And in the end, we want to yeah, something like rate this meeting. Maybe just rate. Okay, that's nice. Okay, so in the case of this meeting was not being rated yet by this user, we should not see the other ratings. Like now. In the case it was rated by this user, then we will list the different ratings. And we're going to do this in this single page. So let's go to the app, we click on it, then we have these different buttons and the option to rate. Okay, let's first check if the data is valid, and we require that at least one of those options are selected. So if I press +1, we can change this text to +1 and then press on rate. On -1, the -1 and 0, 0. Okay, so what we do need now is some kind of state. Let's go to variables, page variables. Well, right now we're calling it rate, but in the data structure it's called effective. Well, let's call it effective here as well. So the idea behind effective and not giving it a name rate is that you might want to rate this meeting on different dimensions, like how effective was it, how wasteful was it, how much time did it consume, and so on and so on. But in this simple example, we will only stick with one. So let's call it effective here, and the effective is a number. The type should be a number. Integer as text. Okay. Let's see if this is just a text or is it a real number. Okay. So if we press this button on the component temp event, we want to set a page variable. We're going to set this page variable. Well, no page variables are defined. Let's check out. Oh, sorry. This is wrong. This should be a page variable, not a page parameter. Effective. There we are. This is a real number. Okay. So let's go back here. Effective, and we will assign it a static number -1. Okay, let's copy this node. Let's go to the next button, paste it, link those two, and put this one to 0. The same as for the third one. All right. And this rate expects a rating. So just to make sure that we are doing or we're dealing with valid data, let's just put a toast. And let's connect it with the page variable. Okay, let's try it out. -1, 0, 1. Okay, looks like on default this one is set to 0. Yes. Nice. So if we have not picked any, this one would be 0. Now it's set to a number. Okay, let's make this rate text dynamic by clicking on the button, on label, click on the box and change it to formula. Formula would already will take what's already in the static field and copy it into this input box. Now we can just add from the page variable the effective number. So it starts with null, 0, okay. But we do not want this one to be null, so let's have a if. If the variable is null. Is null, is nully. Nully will take more than null. In effect, also will check on if it's undefined. So in JavaScript, you have different states which are similar, like undefined and null and NaN. They have some historic reasons, but sometimes you're checking for null and the value is really undefined. And to make sure that there are none of those, we can use the nully function and then check for the variable in page variable, the effective number. So if it's null, then let's just display empty string. And if it's not null, then let's display the effective variable. Okay. Click, rate, there we are. That's nice. Okay, and the different option is even though we have a null, we can click on rate, and we can disable this by clicking on the button here. Go on the properties, disabled. It's usually always false, but now we want it to not be false in the case. So if it's null, then it should be disabled. So we go to utility, we pick is nully, and then we pick the page variable effective. Save. So it's a bit grayed out. I cannot click it. But once we click one number here, then it's enabled again. Okay, great. We also want this data to be stored in a variable. Let's put it in, let's open a new variable, page variable, add feedback, save, it's a text. Let's put the value from page variable in feedback. There we are. Okay, great. So now what we need to do is, once I press this button here, we want to create, a new rating. And how does our rating look? You can take a look at Postman. Postman will tell us, I'm going to do a get. So here's an element I created by accident. But what Postman would tell us, each of those has a feedback property, and there is an array. And what we want to do is extend this array by putting a new object inside. And our user ID, we know it, the effective number is whatever we chose here, and the text is whatever we chose here. Okay. So what we need to do is create the data first. Okay, in this case we need to use the JavaScript flow function. Let's give it a name, extend feedback array. And because it's JavaScript, this is the same programming language which runs inside your browser. So we can test it in the same time. Yeah. I'm going to show you how to use the console in the browser. But first let's connect those two. Click on the JavaScript, and then we are going to tell that the input 1, let's use it. Yeah, let's give it the page variable effective. We might change actually the property name as well. Let's just call it effective, like this. And effective is a number. And a new property, let's call it feedback text. We'll just call it text. And we start that one in feedback here. And the third one is the user ID. The user ID, okay, we just call it user in this case. Let's call it user. And this data is stored in the app variable. There we are. We have all of those 3 data payment points. And the fourth one is our meeting. And the meeting is stored in data. Meeting 1. We want the whole object. All right, so now it looks complicated. how this works is it's essentially a lambda function, a single function. It takes something in and it spits something out. And let's comment this out. You can comment it out by putting 2 slashes in front of a row. And what we want to return is some kind of an object, like this. And let's copy this one. We want to return something like that. This is an object, it has data in front of it, and that's how we want to update the data. And what we want to do is to update whatever is in this feedback. So we can do that by, I think the easiest way is just to put it in behind of that. And let's remove every auto-generated data from the server. For example, the ID is auto-generated, created on, and updated on. It's indicated by a little underscore. Okay. And the name of our meeting is the same name as before. It's called input.meeting.name. Okay. And we can test this actually on this current state. Let's just test it to see how it looks like. Yeah, and the output, well, yeah, let's try it like this. Update. Now we have a function. Let's put an alert and connect those two. And the alert is taking, okay, I cannot select the JavaScript node. Let's try it with the formula. Output of another node. Okay. Maybe we need to specify an output. Okay, let's call it meeting, new, or a new meeting, new meeting. And to output the new meeting, we need to wrap this object into a new object called meeting. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. It should be new meeting. I think it's okay. Let's just name it meeting. Save. Now let's try it again. Still. It's called inputs. Okay. just convert it to a string. Okay, that works so far. So the next step is to use this transformation to shape the data in that way what we need to have it.